Welcome to episode 83 of Sport SA Daily Diary. Today we're chatting to four-time Olympian, South African swimmer, Roland Schoeman. Roland, good afternoon. How are you today?
Hey, great. Thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Good to see you've got a South African background there, all the way in the States.
Yeah, I've got my Herald's Bay background, a place that I love, that's firmly in my heart. And then I've got this South African, well, you can't really see it there with the background, but a little South African coffee mug. I use that for my coffee every single morning. So it's a good start to the day so far.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to see you've still got that South African bit in you. Roland, you've been in the States for quite a long time now. You still get back to South Africa a little bit?
Not as much as I want, unfortunately. I was literally managing to get back 3 times a year. We'd always get back we'd get back for trials, which is generally in April. We'd have our major meets of the year, whether it was World Champs or Commonwealth Games or the Olympics, and we'd always go back for a couple of weeks after that. And December's, I love being home. It's the most beautiful time of the year for me, and to be able to spend the festive season with family is something incredibly special. And I've been missing out on that. I've been fortunate that I've been able to be back for Christmases the last few years. But I'm just a little disappointed that I haven't been able to make it there more frequently. It's tough being overseas and seeing everybody, grow older and missing time with friends, missing time with family. I think that's been the hardest thing.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, and it's so far away. It's not as if you can hop on a plane and get here quickly. Roland, you've had an amazing career, and we'll go through that in a bit of detail. But you started swimming quite late in terms of sort of a professional swimmer. You see a lot of the Olympic swimmers now are in their sort of mid-teens. You only started swimming at the age of 13.
Right. Yeah, it was an unconventional start, to say the least. I was probably just short of 14, and I'd met a girl in standard 6. She was a year lower than me, and she was a part of the swim team. And I guess I've always done things a little more unconventionally. And I guess most people would have actually just gone up and introduced themselves and said, "Hi, I'm so and so. Would you like to go on a date?" For me, I was a bit more shy, far more introverted than that. So I thought, well, if I start swimming and I can swim really well, then maybe I could impress her, and then we can start dating. And that's kind of what I did. And we dated for a little while. And it really was unconventional. But I think I'd always been active in sports. I played PG Bison Week cricket. I played soccer for Northern Transvaal at the time. I did tennis. I was a ranked tennis player. So it was my overall athletic development from an early age was there, I think was critical, whereas a lot of kids when they're 6, 7, 8 start specializing just on one sort of sport. So for me, I think my overall development in that stage, or at that point in time, really, really helped me with my growth in swimming at a later stage.
I'm surprised you didn't end up marrying this young lady after the career you've had. So thanks to her.
It was puppy love more than anything else. And I think when you're 14 and, you don't really have a concept of what love is, but it really did bring me into the sport of swimming, and to her, I'll always be thankful for that.
Yeah. And I mean, starting at 13, did you realize that you were quite good at swimming initially, or did it sort of take a few years to get into it?
It took a while to get into it. I remember my first 50-meter butterfly race. We were swimming just in our inter-house championships, and I'd never really done butterfly before, or never done a 50 butterfly before. And they put me in, and I swam 25, and I turned, and everybody was far ahead of me, and I came off the wall, and I stopped moving. So I was like, the heck with this. I put my feet down and I walked the rest of the lap. So it was, it was a slow initial growth, building up the fitness, building up the technique and strength that was required to be a solid performer. And I remember having friends around me that had been swimming for years with hundreds of medals, and there was a huge amount of frustration in the fact that I was lagging so far behind, or what I perceived to be lagging so far behind at that point in time. And then it really wasn't until I was about 17, 18 that I really started exceeding what my expectations were.
Yeah. And I mean, you started with butterfly, which is a particularly difficult sort of stroke to master. I mean, if I get in a pool and swim butterfly, I look like I don't know, I'm just flapping all over the place. Did you have the skill and that style to swim butterfly right from the outset?
Actually, butterfly was one of the worst strokes for me. I was initially almost a backstroker freestyler, and I started training with a triathlon group because that was actually at 6 o'clock at night. So my coach at the time, Gavin Ross, he was a teacher at Willow Ridge High School. He was a coach of the swim team and coach of a triathlon group. And the only time that I could make swimming training was at night, because during the day I had cricket or rugby or whatever it might be. So originally started off, primarily freestyle based, and then when I switched through to the club side, seemed to excel for a little while at backstroke and freestyle. And he wanted me to be more of a 400 middle distance freestyler. And despite all the training that was geared and centered towards that, I sort of gravitated towards the sprints and seemed to do better and better at the sprints.
Yeah. And I mean, you certainly progressed very quickly. By 1998, you were already representing South Africa at the Commonwealth Games for the first time. Tell us a bit about that. That must have been quite a special moment for you.
Yeah, it was really special. I think there wasn't, I mean, I'd watched the 96 Olympics and I'd seen Brendan Dedekind and Rake on TV, and it seemed almost like it was next level. I didn't really fathom myself at that point in time being able to go to an Olympic Games. But I qualified for the trials, and it seemed to be doing well. I seemed to be swimming fast enough and qualified for Commonwealth Games. And all of a sudden I was on a team with Rake Neethling and Brendan Dedekind and all of these guys that I'd really looked up to for a period of time, and having my first true international senior elite team. So being able to go to Kuala Lumpur and in Malaysia and experience this games environment was something that I absolutely loved. I was starry-eyed just going in there, and the whole preparation camp, the flights together, flying to Malaysia, the whole process of going from the airport through to the games village, getting your accreditation done, seeing what a village was all about, all the free food, all the free goodies and experiences. It was, I was so taken aback. I felt like a kid on Christmas morning, and being able to experience all of this and see it for the first time. And all the guys like Rake and Brendan that had been to the Olympics at that point in time were just like, yeah, okay, yep, we know this, but for the youngsters, we were just so overwhelmed, and it was just really, really cool to be in an environment that was geared for such high performance. And we were treated like, not royalty, but we were treated like professional athletes.
And was were those games really just about experience for you?
Yes and no. I think the initial goal was to be able to go there and just gain the experience. And then I qualified for the final in the 100 freestyle. And I finished 6th, and I broke the South African record. And, that was pretty cool, because I turned in 8th place and I had a good amount of endurance coming back, and to be able to finish 6th and break a new South African record, it's like, wow, man, this is way better than we expected. And we always, we thought the 50 freestyle would be a better, stronger event for me. And going to the 50 freestyle, just another level of expectation, thinking, wow, I can put myself in a position to win a medal in this. And, slipped on the block during my start, and, finished 6th, I believe, as well, and just wasn't what I'd hoped for, and was pretty cut up and disappointed about the way I finished up. But all lessons that I could that helped take me on further.
I think it was really a case of the new kid is on the block, and you certainly made a statement.
Yeah, I think so. And that wasn't really ever the intention to make a statement. I know some people out there, that's what they want. They want to be that new hot thing. For me, it was just sort of part of the development. I've always wanted to push myself. I've always wanted to be the best in the history of my body, and to be able to maximize my true potential, whatever that meant. And when I haven't been able to do that in a race, there's always been a level of disappointment growing up, sometimes far more severe than others. borderline verbally abusive on myself, but that was also just part of the learning curve. It's expecting perfection out of myself.
Yeah. You speak about being sort of abusive with yourself. You posted a post on Instagram, which I want to get to a bit later, but the initial element of that post was how disappointed you were with yourself about the 2000 Olympics.
Yeah.
Why?
I think going in, once again, expectation can be a funny thing. Going in, I was ranked top 3 in the world in the 50 freestyle. I swam a 22.04. Nobody in the world had been that fast in 4 years. Leading up to the Olympic Games. So I really believed that I put myself in a position to win an Olympic medal, especially an Olympic gold medal. I think, we all know South African sports culture. We know how heroes are treated. And to watch, the 95 soccer World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, and to see how well the guys did, and to see, the way they were treated afterwards. I think any top South African athlete wants to be able to put themselves in that sort of same position. So going in, I trained hard. I'd done everything, as well as I believed we could have done it. And going in, I missed the final in the 100-meter freestyle, but did all right. And we really believed once again that the 50 freestyle was going to be my baby, and went in and swam half a second slower than I'd been leading up to the Olympics. So a huge amount of disappointment in that. It was a huge amount of anger, frustration, sadness, and not really understanding why I had missed. It's one thing for an athlete and a swimmer specifically to be swimming round about a certain time. But when they're a half a second off in 50 meters, that's a significant deficit to have to deal with. Came back to South Africa after 2000 Olympics and found out that I'd been diagnosed with Epstein-Barr, so I'd been dealing with that at the Olympics. So there was a little bit of comfort in that, but still not enough to be like, okay, well, weights off my shoulders, because I didn't want to have to blame something. I wanted to be able to figure out why the performances were so bad and be able to, go back in time and not have that happen initially and be able to walk away with the medal kind of thing.
Yeah. You certainly are very hard on yourself. Tell us a bit about the asthma in terms of, has it had any impact on your career? Or have you just managed it with the correct medication?
No, it's always been a significant impact, and more so when I was younger. Not being able to finish workouts, having to go to my bag and get my asthma pump out. So it really did impact me, largely so, and it really wasn't until the 2004 Olympics where we were required to present a TUE, which is a therapeutic use exemption. We were in the village and we didn't have one in place. Nobody at SASCOC or NOX at that time had told us the requirements. Nobody at SEDS. So, got this letter, you have to prove that you have asthma. And this was just days before we were about to start racing. So we went to a lab. They had a pulmonologist there. They had their staff, whoever they may be. And they put us on me and several other people, they put us on a bicycle and they induced an asthma attack. It was crazy. So
just before competition.
Before competition. And they discovered that I was losing between 60 and 70% of my lung capacity and lung function.
Jeepers. So
I didn't realize how bad my asthma really, really was at that point in time until that had happened. So as much as it was, sort of a hindrance to be able to have to go and do that and prove that I have asthma, there was a huge amount of insight that we gained from that. And based on that, we saw a pulmonologist in South Africa at the time, started working with GlaxoSmithKline to get me on some medication that was going to help clear up my asthma. And by religiously using it over the last few years, it's really helped to the point where I don't really need it anymore. In many ways, I've outgrown my asthma, which is great.
Oh, that's great to hear. And it was almost the start of your career then, because from then, you just flew. I want to chat a bit about the 2004 Olympics, in particular the relay, the image behind me. Was there a specific plan for that race? Because it wasn't as if you guys were 100% favorites going in, you know, you were a sure thing. South Africa sort of came in the back door and stole it from everybody else.
Yeah, it really was. I think, 2003 was a turning point for us. Rake and I had gone to World Championships, so Lyndon was there as well, Darren was there, but we'd had really subpar World Championships. It was, to go there and perform as poorly as we did was really eye-opening for us. And we got back to Arizona and we sat down with our coaches at the time, Rick DeMont and Frank Bush, and we had to start planning forward. I think we were really, really individually based and had these individual ideologies of being able to be, Olympic gold medalists. And, while that was somewhat realistic, it was the coaches that really planted the idea in our head that how do you start investing in each other? How do you start working together as a team? How do you buy into this idea of being able to win a gold medal as a relay? Because when you can be there with 3 other people, you can share that workload and keep each other accountable on a daily basis. That is how you guys are going to, put yourself in a position to win a medal at the Olympic Games, instead of, the accountability is just on me or my coach keep making sure that I was doing the work. All of a sudden now Rake and I were gym partners, and he's a big, strong guy. So to be in the weight room and having him as my gym partner, being forced really to lift heavier than I thought I could, and having him push me to the last rep. And vice versa with Lyndon there as well. Just the 3 of us being able to keep each other accountable and push each other every single day. There were days in there that Lyndon didn't want to swim, and we get him to a place where he'd once again buy into it. Same for me, same for Rake. So it was really that sort of propelled us into it. And I don't think anybody else in the world had really bought into that idea of winning a gold the way we had. The idea of supporting each other, the idea of being brothers, very much in the build up to the Olympic Games. And it got to the point where we were a family. We sat together, we walked together, we were always together, a gang in very, very many ways. And that's sort of, when we went to the Olympics, I always said, I want to lead off. I want to take on that burden. I know I have the initial speed. I know I can get out to a lead, and I going into the Olympics, I started feeling really good, faster than I'd ever felt before. And I said, I want this. I'm going to get you guys a lead. I don't know how far it's going to be. All I know is it's going to be a lead. And we knew Rake Rake was probably the most experienced anchor swimmer of the group, so that was always on him. Lyndon and I, we were such good friends, and we are still such good friends, but we knew that his ability to practice a relay takeover off of my coming into the wall was, we were always going to be really, really good. Darian was sort of the unknown because he'd been training in South Africa. He didn't have too much international experience at major international meets. So we didn't exactly know where he was going to be, but as soon as we got to, the Athens, we pulled him in. And we made him we'd been chatting to him by telephone, by email in the build-up, but it wasn't until he got to Athens that we really pulled him into that close-knit group, and we started practicing everything. And we didn't have the luxury that other teams have of having 6 swimmers. It was just the 4 of us. Yeah. Top teams like America, Australia, Russia, they rest 2 guys in the morning, and that's usually their top 2 athletes. And we really had to go at it in the morning. And try and assert ourselves and see where we finished up, and hopefully it was in pole 1 position. And then once again we had to go at it at night.
It must have been an incredibly special moment, Roland. And a question with sort of a two-phase question really is: do you feel that winning that Olympic gold was made more special because you did it as a unit and you built up so much more as a unit, other than winning it as an individual? So winning an individual gold or winning it as the team relay. And tell us about the emotion of going onto that top step, hearing the South African anthem, having the gold put around your neck. There's not too many young kids that have experienced that or will ever experience that.
Yeah, it's unfortunately never won an individual Olympic gold. I think to be able to have done that and to be able to step up on the podium would have been amazingly rewarding. I think of standing on the podium and in silver position or in bronze position for the 50 and the 100, and wishing I'd been able to perform better, you know, just to have that additional accolade. But exactly like you say, to be able to stand on the top step with three other, you know, brothers in many ways was so incredibly special. Knowing, you know, knowing the way or how hard we had worked, knowing what we had put in, knowing the tears we'd cry, the blood we bled. You know, it wasn't like, you know, if you're an individual, nobody can see that. Nobody is necessarily, you know, understanding of what you've been through, but we can look at each other and know exactly what we've been through. So that was incredibly special. And to step up there was, I mean, Lyndon and I, we were just, you know, giddy laughter. And Knox at the point in time had said they were going to give, you know, an X amount for a gold, an X amount of silver, X amount of bronze. So, I mean, I remember us standing at the top, we was like, man, we're going to get money from this as well. I mean, how special is this? We not only do we win a medal and it's gold, and we've done something that's never been done in the history of our country, but man, we also get paid for this. How cool is this experience? I mean, we never did end up getting paid. Knox sort of withdrew all of that at that period of time, which was disappointing, but we still had that memory. We still had that gold, and we still had that experience together.
Yeah. I mean, that Olympics was still a very successful one for you. You got a full house of medals, silver in the 100-meter free and bronze in the 50 free. That, I mean, that overall experience must still be very close to your heart.
For sure. I mean, early on I spoke about how verbally abusive I could be with myself, and that was sort of one of them. You know, having led off the relay as fast as I did, 48.17, the winning time for the 100 freestyle was 48.17. And I think I was 48.21 or 22. So it was within, you know, several hundredths of a second that I felt I'd missed it. And, you know, I always knew that Peter van den Hoogenband was going to be, you know, a back half swimmer, meaning he was going to be swimming, you know, up towards me, towards the end of the race. And my strategy was always the same: go out fast, and if you can catch me, awesome. Yeah. But we never really dealt with or practiced the coping strategies in a race of what happens when somebody is actually there. And it's something that I really regret at this point in time, because, you know, I knew he was going to be coming up towards the end. Yet when he did, I got surprised, and there was a little bit of panic in there. And if you panic in that period of time, within a couple of seconds, you lose your stroke initially. And it was that loss of stroke that I believe cost me a gold medal. And, you know, going to the village, looking at the silver and saying, you know, you piece of crap, what are you doing? You failure. And that's there. It's like, it doesn't logically make sense, but in the minute it was just overrun with emotions. And, you know, had you said to me 2 weeks before, Roland, you're going to walk away in the first 3 or 4 days of the Olympic Games and you're going to have a gold and a silver, would you be happy? I'd be like, of course. I mean, why not? But then in that minute, you know, being able to, you know, create the what ifs. Well, what if I'd have been prepared? What if I'd done this? And, you know, and have the idea that I would have walked away with an Olympic gold medal. There's a level of frustration. And I think part of, you know, the perfectionist within me, the perfectionist tendencies to be like, oh, well, I should have done this. I should have done that. I could have done that. And had I done that initially, or in the first place, I would have won gold. Yeah. And it was tough then having to refocus for the 50 freestyle. And, you know, went into the 50 freestyle. That was my baby. You know, I had so much easy speed, had so much power and acceleration that I breezed through the prelims. I breezed through the semifinals, went in seated first. And I think, you know, stepping up to the blocks, I was overly ready. I wasn't anxious, but I wanted it more than, you know, I know I'd missed the gold medal in the 100 freestyle. So I stood up on those blocks, and I think I was far too aggressive in a sense, instead of having that same level of relaxation in the start of the 100 freestyle. And once again, you know, stood up on the blocks, and instead of having that level of relaxation, pulled too hard on the blocks and pulled myself down. Instead, I mean, the ideal trajectory is to be able to go out kind of thing. And I just pulled myself straight down. as a result, that cost me several hundredths of a second. And I believe had I had the same start I'd had in the 100 freestyle, I would have won gold in that as well.
Yeah.
So just another learning experience, and it really is a roller coaster of emotions. Winning this bronze as well, being so excited and so thrilled about being able to walk away with a full house of medals, but still have that idea in my back of my head, like, man, this could have been 3 golds.
Yeah.
What would that have been like?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've chatted to a lot of you sportsmen over the last sort of lockdown period, and you are all very harsh on yourself. And quite a common theme has been, it's almost harder to come second than it is to come fourth, and losing out on a medal entirely. So sort of getting that silver as opposed to that gold, as opposed to getting nothing. It's quite something to think about.
I think Rake might disagree with you on that one, of finishing fourth in the 100. I think he would have been so happy had he and I finished second and third together. And that would have been really, really special, I think. But yeah, it's 100%. If finishing second and third it is tough. But then once again, I mean, if you have a son or a daughter or even a niece or a nephew that finishes second in a race, and you can see how upset they are, you're not going to look at them and be like, you suck.
Yeah.
What's the matter with you? Why didn't you win gold? You're going to wrap them up and hug them and be like, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of the effort you put in. And we can do that with kids, and we can do that with other people, but yet it's so hard for us to do it with ourselves. And I think therein lies a huge gap for improved performances, to be able to know when to push ourselves, and when we are slacking off, and have that level of accountability from ourselves and the peers around us.
Yeah.
But then also be able to be gentle on ourselves and say, you know what, that's the best I could do. That's the best I could do. And it's okay not to get silver. It's okay not to get bronze. It's okay not to get gold, whatever it is. Just being able to be gentle enough and embrace the childlike side of ourselves, I think is critically important at points.
And I think you make such a good point for young up-and-coming athletes to actually listen to that point and think, should I actually stop putting so much pressure on myself, and maybe I'll actually perform a bit better. Roland, that sort of 2004 gold was really a launch pad for South African men's swimming. It's almost become a golden generation that's carried on and on. Did it have an impact on swimming in South Africa? That okay, South Africans can win gold, and it's now just flowed through?
I believe it did have an impact. I think for us growing up, Rake was a good example of a South African that had gone to America. He had done well in the NCAA, American Collegiate Circuit. He'd gone to Commonwealth Games and done fairly well. So he was, in essence, a pioneer. Jonty Skinner, years and years and years before, had been a bit of a pioneer, but he'd done it in isolation. He hadn't been allowed to compete at the Olympic Games. Brendan as well, a sprinter, but we didn't really have a platform of top stars. I think when you have a Rugby World Cup success like '95, you set an example, and you need one group of people, I think it's when it's 1, 2, or a group of people that sort of break the mold and show, hey, we can do this. Just because we're South African and we may not have the best facilities or may not have the best resources, whatever it is, we can still go out and be world champions, Olympic champions, in spite of all these circumstances. And it's not an excuse. When we can do that, and when we did that in 2004, I think all of a sudden people started identifying with us. People knew what it was like to go through that battle, through the struggle, having to swim in ice cold pools, maybe not having ideal coaching situation, whatever it might have been. But all of a sudden you have people you can look up to. And it just takes that one person or that group of people that you can initially look up to and see as successful to be a bit of a benchmark and be like, okay, well, man, I was born in Bloemfontein as well, kind of thing. Or I was born in Pretoria and I'm a sprinter, and man, Rake did it, or Roland did it, or Lyndon did it. And then all of a sudden you find, Chad coming through, Cameron coming through, continuing that lineage of people being able to step up and and show South Africans and be a bit of an example to the rest of them. I think we're faltering in, or we had been faltering in women's swimming because there really was a large gap from Penny Haynes, Marianne Creel, Julia Russell. We had Lisa Marie Retief, we had Lauren Roots, we had a couple of other really good swimmers, but nobody that had really stepped up and won an Olympic gold or a Commonwealth game gold. And now we have Tatiana and a couple of others that are really stepping up and once again being that example. I think one of the things that was crucial, what we wanted, and we had said to Swimming South Africa, is let's grow this together. I mean, we're in this just as much as we are with we're in this just as much as you are in this with us. How can we find ways to develop, swimming in our country? And unfortunately, there was just no level of interest on their side at all. I think we find that pretty systematic with organizations in South Africa, with the governing bodies. There's an us versus them philosophy. If athletes are involved, well, we're not going to get our recognition, or there's some sort of adversity that exists between having athletes or players, on board with the organizations, the governing bodies themselves. And I think that's silly. I think if you can have a players organization or players directly involved or athletes directly involved with the day-to-day business decisions, man, that's where we see the most growth. That's why the NBA is so successful. That's why the PGA Tour is so successful. That's why NFL is so successful, is they have the players organizations that have, decision-making capabilities or abilities to be able to help sport progress. And we're just seeing what's happening with organizations in South Africa now, and it's sad because all of that could have been prevented. It really has, and there's a level of pride and ignorance in it, and it's not too late. That's the reality. Is I think I'd still love to be involved in swimming or sport in South Africa in general. I've been a world beater for 20 odd years. I know what it takes. I know what the world of athletics is like, or sport is like.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more with you. I think South Africa's got such talented individuals in the country, sporting wise, and it's not sort of utilized to the full degree. An interesting point in your career was when Qatar came calling. They offered you 40 million rand to swim for them. Very proudly, I can say you turned them down, which I think is absolutely amazing. I often think if I had to represent my country, I would only ever want to represent South Africa. It's not negotiable. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, that was a really interesting time. It really was after 2005, or between 2004 Olympics and 2005 World Championships, that my agent had got the offer, and it was really tough, especially coming off the 2004 Olympics, where Noxa and Sascock had promised us a certain amount of funding after the Olympics. The lack of sponsors. I reached out to several people that I really, really trusted, sportsmen from South Africa, and I really asked for their mentorship and guidance in this, because I had so much, it was so conflicting. I wanted to continue to represent South Africa, but I knew the funding wasn't there. And all of a sudden the funding was available. They were going to, 40 million rand's a lot of money. And, a lot of the top sportsmen that I spoke to said, take the money and run. You're never going to get to South Africa. South African sport is unfortunately on the downward spiral. Take the money and run. And it's something I still wonder about today. It's like, well, what could I have done differently? Could I have been, I've always said to Swimming South Africa, I want to be involved. I want to be involved. And they've never taken me up on it. I think I could have put systems in place had I swum for Qatar, where I could have been involved in the development of their programs, of the infrastructure of sport there. So I think there would have been a lot of benefits to having moved to Qatar, or not necessarily moved to Qatar, but represented Qatar. I most likely would have been an ambassador for sport going forward for them. All stuff I would have loved to have done for South Africa. And my hope was that, when I declined it, that South Africa, sports and recreation, Swimming South Africa, Noxa or Sascock, or and the government would have taken me on board and said, hey, you know what, that's sort of what we want. We want that national pride. We understand why you do it. We understand why you would have potentially, you know, taken the money, but we're proud of you for making the decision that you did. How can we get you involved? And I said, I want to be involved, but having been involved at that stage to help, you know, implement necessary changes at the time. So it's something that I still think about. I'm still proudly South African. It's like you said, the idea of standing on a podium representing another country that wasn't of my birth, that I had never spent very much time in, listening to an anthem that, you know, had no sort of connection with me, would have been really, really tough. And I see this now in South African sport a lot, where the cricketers are getting Colpack deals and they're playing for other countries. And I understand why they're doing it. And I think most of South Africans just don't understand that. They see, well, they're South African, and they're playing for somebody else. Well, you know, F off, you know, you get out of here. You know, you don't deserve to be South African in any case. But the thing is, we have such an emotional attachment to these people that represent us. But if I came to you and I said, okay, well, you working at company A, and company A gives you 500,000 Rand a year, and company C approaches you and says, hi, we value what you have to give us. We're going to give you 1.5 million, plus these additional benefits. If anybody says, oh, well, gee, I've got pride in company A, and I'm just going to stay with company A because it's 500,000 as opposed to 1.5 million. I mean, that's foolish. And when we started removing the emotion from that and started thinking about it logically, these kids, because of the systems that are in place in South Africa currently, with the lack of infrastructure, with all the financial issues, with all of the organizations, all of the governing bodies, they're thinking, how do I get to be the best athlete that I can be? Where can I maximize my talents? Where can I maximize my gifts? And the reality for most of them is it's not South Africa. And they're being forced to go overseas so that they can, in fact, make a living. Because a lot of people, whether you play cricket, whether it's rugby, whatever sport it is, this is their dream. And if they can't live their dream in South Africa, who are you to tell them they're not allowed to go somewhere else and pursue the thing they want most? Why should we have to listen to your opinion on what we should do with our dreams? Imagine if somebody were to tell them you're not allowed to live out your dreams the way you want to. So I think if we have a little bit more of a reserved opinion, we don't know what these athletes are going through, what these rugby players, cricketers, swimmers, whatever they might be. We don't know what they're necessarily going through and what their motivations are. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
And I mean, a sporting career is a relatively short-lived one. So you need to maximize it while you can. Roland, what do you think we can do as a country to make a difference? I mean, how long are we going to sort of stick our head in the sand like this and go on? Surely something needs to change.
I think first and foremost, we need the powers that be to take accountability. In any company in the world, in any organization in the world, if you don't deliver, you're fired. But we have these people in all the administrative positions that just stay there because it's financially beneficial for them. We need to go back to zero. We need to get the athletes involved. We need athletes committees to be at the forefront of the decision making, because that's when we need audits of all of the organizations because if I'm a sponsor, I don't want to come in and sponsor a company or a professional sports team and not know where my money is going to go. And when there's no athletes on there or sportsmen that are affecting the decision-making abilities going forward, why should we sponsor you? So if we can roll back or not even roll back the clock, we have to start back at zero. We have to go back to the drawing board with pretty much every single organization out there and restart it. Employ people that deserve to be there, are there on merit based on experience. If you're in swimming, get actual ex-swimmers involved and current swimmers involved that can make up a part of that organization and can help the development going forward. In my opinion, that's the basic starting point. Nobody's going to want to really invest money until we can show them a return on investment, and show them that the books are clean, show them that, you know, there's good governance, transparent governance. You know, I think we want that level of transparency. There's lots of people we can get involved to get to that. It's not impossible, but it's going to take, you know, one foul swoop of getting rid of everybody that doesn't deserve to be there. And that's what needs to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, and especially on the sponsorship point, having been in the sponsorship game for a long time now, I don't think South Africa's even touched the surface in terms of what sponsorship can offer. And I'm sure in the US you see it with, you know, the Super Bowl and all these other major competitions, that the power of sponsorship. And until the associations have their house in order, the sponsors aren't going to come.
Spot on. Spot on. And that's the thing, is there's so many international examples of where we can be. And for whatever reason, we're not there. And I'm offering my help. I want to find out how we can get there.
Yeah.
Because look at the talent that our country produces.
Got the talent.
Across the board. Look at the golfers, the swimmers, the athletes, athletics, you know, all these people that we have with so much ability. And this is in spite of current circumstances.
Yeah.
Imagine if all of a sudden, sport and recreation, the government, the organizing bodies got together and say, how do we actually maximize the potential, the development, the recruitment of athletes, so that we can put forward the best teams, the best athletes going forward. And then all of a sudden companies buy into that. Super Sports buys into that. You can start packaging things for TV better that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And just doing these daily diaries, I mean, I've interviewed world champions of clay target shooting and archery. And I mean, South Africa's got the talent right across the board. Let's get back to you though, Roland. 2005 was a good year for you. And a couple of following. You won 2 golds at World Champs, a silver, a bronze. Then you went to Commonwealth Games and won 4 gold, 3 silver, 3 bronze. You had SA records in 100 meters free, 50 meters free, 100 meter butterfly, 50 meter butterfly. I mean, you really took off. There were other elements of African swimmer in the year, 3 years in a row. SA swimmer 4 years in a row. SA Sports Star of the year in 2004. I mean, your accolades are, your CV would be 100 pages.
Not quite 100 pages. I do appreciate it, but it's been an illustrious career with so many ups, and you know, I think it's been testament to hard work, belief in myself. You know, this is my family, my friends, the people that have supported me, to the investment I've made in myself. And the reality is we do see a lot of the accolades, but we don't see a lot of the hardships, the failures that actually go into making champions. When we see the relay that wins, or the athletes winning gold medals, you know, that we see. But for every victory out there, there's, you know, 100, what I don't like the word failure, but, you know, 100 failures that went into helping produce that. So it's been a beautifully up and down roller coaster like, you know, career with interesting accolades. And I mean, I even won the Heat Hot 100 guys or something. I was nominated. It was just so funny. I remember. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, you really had an amazing career. 2007, you received the SA Presidential Award, Order of Ikamaha. I'm probably not getting that right.
I think it's Ikamanga.
Yeah, I presume that was awarded to you by Nelson Mandela. And I believe he's the most inspirational person that you've met. Other than him, who's the most inspirational person you've ever met?
Oh gosh, yeah, Nelson Mandela was an incredible man, and I mean, everybody knows why he would be an incredible inspiration. I think my mom is another inspiration. That's having been a single mother and taking care of us and trying to give us absolutely everything that we needed and wanted as kids growing up. You know, and still to this day continuing to support us and love us unconditionally. I think she was and is definitely somebody that I look up to, and very, very blessed to have her in my life as my mother. Then there are athletes out there, a guy like Michael Phelps, a guy like Tiger Woods, people that, have such immense talent and, get to a point in time where they almost squander that talent, not squander the talent, but make incorrect decisions, that affect them. And then they come back, and then they prove themselves again to the world, to the public, to friends and family. I think that's testament to a true champion. When we have a champion step up and wins one thing and then falters and he's never a champion again, it's like, I want to see people that go through the hardest of hard, who struggle with depression, with loss, with failure, with fear, and then still come back up the other side and say, you know what, I've failed over and over and over and over again, but look, I'm back. I'm a champion. I believe in myself. Find a way to get through that, because so many people just give up. When it really gets hard, when it really gets tough, we have so many people that give up. Part of why I'm still wanting to swim today is because there's so many people that are in their 30s that haven't 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s that have a dream, whether it's playing guitar or going out and shooting a best round of golf, or just being fit, just losing weight, but they believe age is a detriment to them. Oh, I'm too old to do that. We hear that all the time. I'm just too old. And I think that's the biggest BS excuse that so many people tend to use today, is I'm too old for that. I mean, age is relative. If you look at an 8-year-old, and 8-year-olds think 15-year-olds are old, and 15-year-olds think 20-year-olds are old, and it's just a perspective. And for me, it's just like, man, if you have a dream and you have belief in yourself and you're willing to do everything in your power to get there, why wouldn't you? I don't want to be on my deathbed one day and think, man, I wish I'd done X, Y, and Z. I'd always pursued my dream. I'd rather pursue my dream and go at it 100% and not make it than always wonder if, what if I had.
And I think, Roland, a lot of sportsmen probably look at you in a similar way. You've participated in 4 Olympic Games, which is an incredible record. Is there a 5th one in there for you?
I don't know. It's obviously with the happenings over the last year and having to fight to prove my innocence, it's been a roller coaster ride, and I'd still like to. I don't know if it would be with swimming full time. And one of those things where it's like, well, it's time to live in the real world now. So it's, it's still a dream of mine to be the first South African to compete at 5 Olympic Games. A lot would need to happen between then and now, or now and then, for that to be a reality. I'm fit. I've been training all the time. We've been blessed here in America that, it's been a lot easier to travel around. So I've been, literally lifting weights 4 days a week, staying fit, staying strong and healthy. So health, strength, power, that's all there. There's just a couple other things that would need to be clarified and sorted out for it to be a reality. But I mean, why not? It's like I spoke about that games experience at my first Commonwealth Games in '98. And I think that's, for me, is to finally be able to go and really enjoy an Olympic Games from that childlike state of, oh my gosh, look at this, look at that, and not have the pressure of, I have to go and I have to win a medal. I think sort of that's what I've learned over time is being able to enjoy being in that moment, every single moment, to whatever it looks like, without an expectation of a result. The result will take care of itself. If you have prepared and done everything in your power, actually done everything in your power to be the best you can be at that given period of time, that's going to happen. But putting unnecessary pressure on yourself, I have to, that comes from a place of uncertainty within you. And the best athletes in the world are those that can, performance and preparation all meet together today, and let's go out and enjoy this. I've done everything I can.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier about the 2004 Olympics and putting the pressure on yourself. You're almost in the reverse now. You're a little bit older, but you've got all that experience that you could save those little few seconds with having just said what you said.
Right. I think I mean, I wish I had the same sort of knowledge and insight and understanding when I was 20, when I was 24, when I was 25, when I was 28. I think it would have helped me a good deal. I think the driving force when I was that age helped propel me to be, the best in the world and to win and have the accolades that I do have. I just wonder what it would have been like if there'd been more of a balance. Instead of being so self-critical, so judgmental and dealing with bouts of, mental health issues growing up through that. Really, I think that's paramount for me to be able to help teach the younger athletes coming through at this point in time, is to find that balance. What does that balance look like, and how can we continue to develop that going forward as an athlete?
Absolutely critical, I think. Roland, just in closing, I mentioned your Instagram post a little earlier in the interview. You've had the Olympic rings tattoo put on your wrist, I think it is,
Yes.
for a different reason. Tell us a bit about your reasoning behind that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get the Olympic rings to commemorate their first Olympic experience. And my first Olympic experience in my eyes was a negative one. I didn't win gold. And it wasn't until going to the 2016 Olympics as a coach and a consultant for Trinidad and Tobago that I got to experience the games and really love the games and enjoy the spirit and see things from, it's not in many ways the sidelines, and see what I'd missed. So the way I approached things and, the way I sort of believed about myself and the successes at the Olympics going forward, or even up to that point, was skewed. I'd seen my Olympics as a dismal failure, but there were so many beautiful moments in the Olympics, so many shared memories, sharing that podium with Ray Darian and Lyndon, being able to win a gold, a silver, and a bronze, to experience, the Olympics in Athens, birthplace of the modern day Olympics, to be able to go to Beijing, to have some of my closest friends be in the stands watching me competing, to be able to be in London. There was so much more good on that journey of being an Olympian. So it was, sometimes we get so focused on one small thing that we lose sight of all the good things that have happened. And that was very, very much me. And it really sort of culminated in 2016 at the Rio Olympics, that I had a chance to sit back and be like, man, I can understand why I made those mistakes and why I thought that way, but now's the time to change. It's never too late to change the way you think or the things you believe. And, Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I changed the way I looked at things. And all of a sudden I saw the Olympic journey as a blessed journey that had taught me so much, that had brought me so much joy, so many memories, so many friendships, so much growth, so much failure, but so much learning, that I was like, man, I now believe that I can commemorate this experience with the rings on my wrist. And it's just a constant reminder. Sometimes you fall back into old patterns of belief and doubt or fear or depression, and look at it again, just, and associated with those, it's almost like an anchoring mechanism. You look back at it and you remember the feelings, the good, the happiness, the joy that it did bring you. And sometimes it gets you out of a funk.
Yeah. I mean, Roland, you say so many wise things, and it would, I think, Swimming South Africa would be so much stronger having you on board, and sport in general in South Africa. I think things have to change. And I'm hoping that they will change, and hopefully we do see you back here and making an impact on South African sport. But it's been fantastic chatting to you today on Sport SA Daily Diary. Could chat to you for another hour at least. Thank you for your time.
Well, let's do a follow-up sometime soon.
Absolutely. It's been absolutely magic. Thank you so much for your time.
And thanks for having me today, and take care out there. Be safe.
Yeah, awesome. You too. Thank you.
Cheers.
Catch us again in tomorrow's episode of Sport SA Daily Diary, where we chat to the South African tennis player that beat Borg, McEnroe, Edberg, Agassi, Chang, and so many more.